It's Tuesday, the 29th of March, 2022. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Adam Lang.
Good morning, Michael.
All right, Adam, we have 5 stories to get through in, under 5 minutes now, so let's rip into it. Story number 1, the inquiry into whether the Star Entertainment Group is fit to operate a casino claimed its first high-profile victim yesterday. Chief Executive Officer Matt Bekier resigned from his role. Now, we talked about him last week. It was alleged that back in 2018, he was very dismissive of a report by KPMG into anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing systems at the casino. Now, one of the authors of the report claimed that Mr. Bekier had criticised content and had even refused to make eye contact with the KPMG partners during a meeting. It's pretty extraordinary.
It is that. We've heard day after day of testimony from Star employees, bank officials and gamblers alleging the Star Entertainment Group sought to circumvent money laundering and cash transaction controls. Now, that's including everything from knowingly dealing with a member of a Chinese triad group to putting hundreds of dollars through as payment for accommodation when it was actually spent on the floor of the casino by one high roller. This story seems to have a long way still to run. The CEO has to take responsibility for all operations within the company, but the inquiry hasn't finished yet. So there still may be more outcomes ahead.
Now, story number 2, Adam, it is budget day, of course, and tonight Treasurer Josh Frydenberg will hand down his final budget before the election, which is due to be held in May. Now, the government's in an interesting position heading into this budget because the economy is going well, unemployment is right down, revenues are better than predicted, and in any other year, the Treasurer would be pretty confident. But the election, as I said, is just around the corner, the opposition is polling very well, and cost of living pressures are rapidly becoming the number one election issue.
Yes, Michael, and it's been reported that the government will temporarily cut the fuel excise tax between 10 and 20 cents a litre and make the Home Buyers Guarantee Scheme permanent and expand it. There's also almost $18 billion for nation-building projects, infrastructure like upgraded bridges, railways and roads. Now, interestingly, a lot of that's going to Queensland. Necessary, of course, but also perhaps a little political.
Surely not. Surely politics doesn't come into where the money in the budget is going.
I'm sure it's not meant to.
Perhaps we're being a little idealistic here, Adam. Story number 3 this morning is overseas, and the fallout from President Joe Biden's comments about Vladimir Putin have continued. And we talked about this yesterday after the US president said Putin cannot remain in power. The White House was, of course, very quick to clarify the remarks, and now other world leaders are doing the same.
Yes, Michael, this time it's German Chancellor Olaf Scholz insisting that NATO does not have a policy of regime change. The other big news out of the region in the last day or so was Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky's comments in an interview with Russian journalists. He said Ukraine would be prepared to discuss adopting a neutral status as part of a peace deal with Russia, but it would need to be guaranteed by third parties.
Yeah, and Adam, it's interesting to note that Volodymyr Zelensky actually delivered that address with the Russian journalists in Russian. He is proving to be a very, very impressive leader, wouldn't you say?
I agree. And in the most incredibly difficult circumstances, imagine your country is facing warfare and you can respond like that. I think he has stood up.
Certainly has. Okay, story number 4, and a big story that's coming out of China, and authorities there are locking down Shanghai in 2 phases as COVID cases rise. It's a 4-day lockdown on half of the city of 26 million people, followed by a lockdown on the other half, and the whole thing is going to see mass testing. This has the potential to have a significant economic impact.
That's right, Michael. This is the equivalent of the population of Australia in Shanghai. Shanghai is a vital financial hub, and it's also a home to a lot of factories, including a Tesla production plant. This could have massive flow-on effects to supply chains around the world, which, as we know, are already under huge pressure.
All right, just one last one. Story number 5, a little bit lighter, a little bit positive. I like to think about travel and tourism and going away places because Qantas Adam, has announced it's going to begin flying between Melbourne and Dallas Fort Worth Airport from December 2. So later this year, the Boeing 787 flights will operate 4 times a week. Now, the reason why this is so exciting is because that is a very long haul flight. The flight to Dallas will take just under 16 hours one way, and the return flight will take 17 and a half hours because headwinds usually make the westbound flights a little bit slower.
Yes, Michael. So this flight will cover 14,471 kilometres, making it one of the longest in the world and only marginally shorter than Qantas's longest route, the Perth to London Heathrow flight. Now, imagine that time having to wear a mask and, if you're like me, also wear glasses for that entire flight.
How do you get by on that then? If you're constantly fogging up for the entire flight, do you just sleep for 17 hours and have the best sleep you've ever had?
Not me.
Not sitting up unless you're flying flat.
Yes.
That's it. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 29th of March, 2022. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, if you want something with a bit more information, a bit more detail, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.